Hello chess friends and welcome to Zardo's chess channel and welcome to the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour finals in 2020. So we have the clash of the titans in the finals. It's Hikaru Nakamura versus Magnus Carlsen, and if you watched it 2020 to this particular moment, it is really the match between the two best players of this year, because Hikaru played really great chess, and we don't want to of course praise Magnus Carlsen anymore because he won most of these tournaments that he has organized. But there is a thing, I believe. Of course, Magnus Carlsen is not scared of Hikaru Nakamura. Maybe he's still the better player, but I still think that he doesn't like the fact that he plays Hikaru Nakamura in this final, because it's something, it's my opinion, it's something I think that doesn't fit for Magnus, this style of Hikaru Nakamura, because in the past, okay, Hikaru had some good positions, but he made blunders. Now it is a different kind of Hikaru. He plays now better chess than maybe 2 years ago. And although Hikaru makes this great content on his YouTube chess channel, he creates many streams, many games that he's analyzing. He plays also some more blitz and bullet games, which you should basically avoid in order to improve your chess. But it's really incredible how Hikaru plays, and he crushed Daniil Dubov in the semifinals with a clear result of 3-0. And this is also a very important clash in this internet era of chess, because we have really a battle between Chess24 and Chess.com. We have to also say it like this. So it's good for me that I'm not part of this saga, Chess24 and Chess.com. I'll leave it to them, but for us, it's of course the best chess game that we can follow now these days. And here it was the second game that I wanted to show you today. In the first game, Magnus Carlsen got a draw with the black pieces. Now it was Magnus who played with the white pieces. So let's check out now the second game. We have round 2 and fight, of course. So let's check out d4, knight to f6 played by Hikaru, c4, e6 after knight to f3, the counter Nimzo Indian setup. I've explained it many times, but I'll explain it again. This prevents, after bishop to b4, us to play something like knight to c3 or bishop to d2. We can still play knight to d2, and we don't risk this double pawn structure on the c file. So it's a line that I use most of the times because I'm a d4 player, and I wanted to see really this game. It was a really instructive chess game because the Queen's Gambit decline was played after the move d5, knight to c3, and now after d takes c4. We have now the 3 knights variation. This will transpose into the so-called Vienna variation after the move e4. Here b5 played by Hikaru. And I want you to also watch one game if you have just the time. Also search it on maybe some other great chess sites. It's the game between Ding Liren against Jan Krzysztof Duda. And Ding introduced to us a very nice line from White's perspective in this particular variation. After the move e4, knight to d5, this is still common theory. It gives, of course, a White the opportunity to take knight to b5, and after knight to b6, here a3 played by Magnus. And this is sort of a novelty, but I'm not sure if that's a good move. I think a normal bishop to e2 is the best way here to proceed, knight to c6. And I wanted to show really this line after castling bishop to e7. Ding played a very interesting queen to d2. This idea is a very active idea because we still can sneak in with our queen to f4 and to g3. Still we could have rook to d1 and we'll still protect our d pawn. So it's a great line. I really wanted to maybe watch. Maybe you have this site, this great chess site, chessgames.com. You can check it out. So as I said, Ding Liren versus Jan Krzysztof Duda. Ding really crushed Jan with this great performance in this particular line. So it's a really great line. But here Magnus plays this move a3, preventing some bishop to b4 ideas, knight to c6, and now bishop to e3. So what I like more about this setup of Ding, that you get the queen now somewhere here, and now the bishop on e3 stands you in the way, and you cannot play with your queen more actively. So in the game, knight to a5, queen to c2, and now a6 played by Hikaru, kicking away the knight, knight to c3, bishop to e7, and now rook to d1, which is a normal idea because the main weakness in White's position is, of course, this backward pawn. We would love to advance the pawn, of course, on d5, but that's so far not possible because here Hikaru plays the move bishop to b7, protects the d5 square very well, because if we manage to crack the position around the square d5, this could be a good game for White, as White has here the space advantage on the 5th rank. And there is one rule of the space advantage. There is also one rule of the direction of the attack when we have this d4 e5 setup. The pawns are basically showing us the direction of the attack here, so we should create an attack on that side. That's the side where we have the advantage, and so far we should use that side on the board. So the problem for black here is that a queenside castling is possible because you have many pieces in front of your king. But the pawn structure is already a little bit weakened. We have the double pawns here, so that could be an object of our attack if, for instance, black castles on the queen side. So these are the strategies. Let's see now what happened. Bishop to e2, and after queen to d7. Here, what Hikaru is trying to do is play maybe rook to d8 and still have a protection, a further protection of the d5, because, as I said, Magnus would love to advance the pawn on d5. So here, Magnus plays a really, really risky idea, h4. This move is not really loved by the engine. A better idea is maybe play knight to e4, or maybe knight to d2, then knight to e4, trying maybe to occupy the weak c5 square, or use maybe the weak g5 square. So these are the targets of the white position. Or maybe castling is also an opportunity here for white, because I'm not sure if black has some good counterattack possibilities. Still, this is an equal game, but this h4 move is not losing, it's not bringing down Magnus Carlsen. He's not giving Hikaru Nakamura an advantage here, but it's really a risky move, this h4. So bishop to c6, also a very, very interesting idea by Hikaru. Here rook to h3, and we have rook to b8, rook to g3, attacking the g7 weakness, and now bishop to a4. We have knight to a4, and now queen to a4. What Hikaru is trying to do is, of course, a simplification, because white has a bishop pair, white has his advanced pawn, and still there is also this clear target on b2, because that's why here Hikaru played rook to b8 on the first place. Now, after trades of queens and knight takes a4, the b pawn would be really a long-term weakness. So here in the game, rook to c1 played by Magnus, protecting his queen. We have knight to b3, and now comes the critical moment of the game. Here, Magnus plays rook takes g7 anyway, and he sacrifices the exchange. But there is one better line. Here, rook to d1 is better here for Magnus, because if you play knight to a5, I believe that Hikaru would have gone into the simplification line, trying to get a draw with the black pieces. Then you have queen to c1. If knight to b3 happens again, then you have queen to c3. If knight to d5 happens, then you have simply queen takes c4. So in order maybe to make something here, after the move queen to c3, maybe again knight to a5 is an idea for black, but then you get bishop to d2, and this is now already a very risky position for black, because after knight to b3, now it's time to take the pawn on g7. I think Magnus Carlsen missed this line. After knight to d2, we still can play rook takes d2, and we would have a good protection of the b2 pawn. But Magnus played this risky tactical line with rook to g7, and Hikaru accepts the challenge. Knight takes c1, queen to c1. We have c3, great move here by Hikaru, splitting pawn idea. After queen to c3, we have knight to d5. He decoys the queen to the square c3, where he can now create another attack. Knight to d5, queen to c1, and now knight takes e3. Great tactics here by Hikaru, because you cannot take with the queen. You would love to take with the queen and get the queen somehow into the game, but that's not possible. F takes e3 has to be played. If you take with the queen, then rook takes b2 will happen, and black has a comfortable game. So f takes e3, king to f8, great move again by Hikaru. Simply attacking the rook, rook to g4, and we have now queen to b3. Queen takes c7, queen to b1. Okay, we have now both sides have taken a pawn, but still, of course, black is up the exchange. Magnus has to make something happen here if he wants to get a draw. King to f2, we have queen to b7. Of course, you don't want to trade off the queens when you're down in material. Here, rook to g8, and now rook to f4. There is also a very, very nice idea of white here. Maybe if the queen wouldn't protect, of course, the d5 score, then we would have opportunities, maybe d5 and follow with e6, because the rook is on the f-file where the king could be attacked. So queen to c6, we have queen to d2, h6, queen to d3, we have rook to g8, and now Magnus finally takes the pawn. Okay, after rook to b2, bishop to e2 has to be played, and now bishop takes a3, we have g4, and now bishop to e7. let's stop a little bit and evaluate the position. Magnus has 5 pawns against 3 pawns, is down the exchange. So far, this is now an equal game, so it should be a draw. But after the move rook to e4, Magnus made basically a mistake, because it allows now here Hikaru to play the move rook to g8, where he can maneuver his king and create a simple attack against this weak pawn on g4. A better idea here for Magnus is to play simply h5. And I think that white can hang on to this position, because black cannot include more pieces into the attack. We have a great protection of the g4, and bishop to g5 doesn't bring you so much. It could be even a losing game here for black, because we can simply take knight takes g5, rook to g5, and now rook to f6 is a threat. So we would simply play king to f3 first, and then rook to f6 is a dangerous move, and then we can maybe improve the position of our bishop to d3, and maybe, just maybe, try to get these pawns rolling. But as I said, rook to e4, again a mistake by Magnus, and it gives now Hikaru the opportunity to remaneuver his king. And here Magnus makes another blunder, inaccuracy, call it what you like, but here g5, it gives a new simplified line for Hikaru. H takes g, we have knight takes g5, bishop takes g5, and after h takes g5, okay, still white has 4 pawns, but you cannot move these pawns anymore. That's the main problem here in the game. Rook to h8, played great move by Hikaru. Of course, the serious threat is to play rook to h2 and grab the bishop on e2. Here in the game, queen to f3, and now Hikaru simply takes another pawn. This is losing here for white. Bishop to f3, rook to d2. We have now rook to d3. You see, again, Hikaru simply attacks the weak backward pawn. d5, we have e takes d5, rook to f6, but now rook to e3, again simply attacking the weakness. Again a check, rook to d4, king to h5, rook to b4, e6, again a risky idea, but now after f takes e6 it's really over, because you have only rook to f6. Magnus tried to battle here, but it's really not something that you want to play here. After rook to f8, we have now really simplified line. After g6, we have king to g8, and you cannot promote anymore this pawn. The king has blocked out everything. Here g7, and now rook to e1. Great move here by Hikaru. What he wants to do is, of course, rook to g1 and simply grab this weak g7 pawn. So, okay, this was a great game in the beginning. Hikaru really played a great game, but as I said, you saw Magnus had his opportunities, made some mistakes, and got punished. Hikaru is now in the lead, and we'll see what will happen in the continuation of this match game of the day 1. So I didn't tell you about this format of this tournament. So the final is played the best out of 7. So in order to be the winner, you have to win 4 match games. So far Hikaru has a great result so far. He can maybe make a point today. We'll see what will happen, as I said, in the continuation of the tournament. So far it was a great final. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more games from this tournament, here is the link. And if you want to see more great games, check out my best chess games of all time and the best chess games played by computers. Here are also the links. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and that's the best, of course.